The Long Road to True Happiness by WierdRandomTina. Chapter 35. True Happiness, Part 1. Branch reached over to silence the light beeping of his alarm clock. He let out a long yawn as he slowly sat up, straightening out his arms and legs in a satisfying stretch. After getting to his feet and putting on his camo robe, he fluffed up his pillow and neatly folded his blanket into its proper place. Once he yawned and stretched again, Branch strolled out of his bathroom, past his living room, and into his kitchen. While patiently waiting for coffee, he hummed a gentle tune, one he had heard playing in the heart of the village the other day. After one mug of coffee and a bowl of assorted fruit for breakfast, Branch headed to his bathroom to finish his morning routine. Not so long ago, he would avoid the little oval mirror above his sink. He'd stand off to the side while brushing his teeth and his hair, and glance the other way while passing by it. If he did look directly at him, it was to scowl at his own unappealing reflection. Now, the face looking back at him was something worth looking at. A troll he was proud to be. Sure, Broppy would argue that he'd always been worthwhile and someone to be proud of. But now, he could truly see it, and believe it for himself. For a minute or two, Branch studied the colours. Nice, bright colours that were somehow his own. The turquoise skin, the deep blue-violet hair, the light lavender nose, the sky-blue eyes. They all belonged to him. It had been 1 week since Branch's full colours had miraculously returned, and he was still adjusting to it. As he had groggily opened his eyes this morning, he had got startled by a blue-green glow nearby, until he stupidly realised it was his own arm. Was my hair always this bold? I do recall that slight purple hue. The extended tips skim the top of my doorway now. Wow, my eyes are very blue. Not pale blue, not light blue, but blue like the sky. My nose is still kind of pale, but I suppose it fits in well with my muted skin colour. I would look quite odd with a giant, vibrant nose. His colours overall appeared even brighter in the dim light of the bunker. It was still strange how all his features were clearly visible in the dark, instead of his skin fading away like a ghost while his hair all but vanished in the shadows. And Branch was not the only troll appreciating this physical change. His transformation was the talk of the village, even those who hadn't witnessed it at the dance and heard all about it the following morning. Word of the only grey troll regaining his full colours spread quicker than floodwaters, and everyone was eager to see if those rumours were true. So Branch's attempt to casually traverse through the village was hindered by troll after troll after troll rushing over to admire his new appearance. In addition to those excited observations and positive comments, Branch was also bombarded with a ton of questions, many repeats, and some easier to answer than others. "Does this mean you're happy now?" inquired a yellow troll with purple hair and pants. This was the most common question, and Branch's answer remained consistent. "I think so. I realise I still don't act extremely cheerful, but I feel better than I did before." More accurately, he would describe his happiness as steady and strong, but calm, not an energetic exuberance he couldn't contain. Every now and then, when given a reason, that feeling would temporarily grow, like a gentle and warm wave of joy, rather than a lightning bolt of euphoria. Come to think of it, even as a trolling, he was never excessively gleeful. He was almost always singing and dancing, and loved to play, but was mellow compared to most other troll children. An older trolling, a chubby purple boy, then asked another common question. "So, are you going to participate in more parties and festivals and other activities?" Well, possibly. I'll try to anyway, but I do still appreciate some peace and quiet." Most days, Branch looked forward to interacting with other trolls and attending parties, but there were still times when quiet solitude of his bunker was more appealing. Smaller crowds and minor events were preferred. but he was learning to enjoy a wider variety of activities, and for those he still didn't care for, he was now able to tolerate. On the other hand, while being solo was a relaxing way to recharge, often it was, well, lonely. The best way to be alone was when he was with Poppy. Just the two of them, playing and bickering and teasing each other, reading one of her hundreds of scrapbooks or helping her create a new one, enjoying a relaxing hike, playing games, snuggling on her comfy couch, sharing sweet, light kisses. Multicoloured artist Harper spoke up next. "I heard you danced last night." Another older artist, Purple with a pink nose, added, "For the first time in decades." "Yeah, just a brief slow dance." Despite Branch's dismissive words, it was so much more than that to him. It was the first time in decades he had a strong interest, an actual longing to dance. It was his first dance with Poppy. It was insanely terrifying, then quickly transitioned into wonderfully heartwarming. It was the moment that led up to the biggest positive change of his life. A teenage green glitter troll with a pale yellow hair piped up. "What made you suddenly decide to dance after all this time?" "I'm not sure exactly. I suppose, for lack of a better term, it felt like the time was right. It was always hard for me to find motivation to do anything enjoyable, because I'd been depressed for so long. But as I gained some positive feelings, I became more willing to give some fun activities a try." As Branch began to heal, his gradually increasing happiness allowed him to expand his tiny comfort zone. But it had taken extra time to build up something as significant as dancing. Though Poppy never openly said anything, or even gave any blatant hints, Branch knew she'd wanted to dance with him. It was as plain as the sparkles on a glitter troll. However, the thoughtful pink troll respected his limited boundaries, and probably figured it would be tactless to ask him for such a sensitive thing. She was fully willing to put aside her own wants for his needs. But when that final slow dance at the coronation party began, Branch had felt so certain that he was meant to dance with her. Even though there was a huge audience, even though he had had little time to mentally prepare himself, even though he was still very nervous about the entire situation, he was ready to dance. But Branch knew that he would have to make the first move. She would never ask him, so he would have to ask her. However, despite his usual hesitance and lack of self-confidence, he wanted to be the one to initiate their first dance. An all-orange troll with aquamarine shorts then bounced over and asked the million-dollar question. "Are you and Queen Poppy an official couple?" Dozens of bright troll eyes stared intently at him, awaiting the answer. He swallowed. Yes, we are." It felt so surreal to say that out loud. It almost made him feel uncomfortable, like he was telling a lie. But at the same time, it felt so wonderful knowing it was the full truth. He and Poppy's friends approved of their relationship, and even King Peppy approved. But Branch was still slightly worried about what the others might think of him dating their queen. But everyone he encountered seemed sincerely supportive. "Ah, yay! That is so wonderful! You and Queen Poppy are super cute together. That's great news! I'm so happy for you two!" Then, in the blink of an eye, the eager crowd doubled, maybe even tripled. Questions and comments about his true colours flew at Branch from every angle, along with several more mentions of the dance, plus a few inquiries about his relationship with Poppy. And then Moxie, the dark pink troll with bubblegum pink hair, questioned loudly right behind him. "Is it true you sang as well?" No one had asked that yet. He spun around to face her as a golden glitter troll hurried over to add, "My sister said it looked like you were singing near the end of the slow dance." "I heard that too!" someone shouted from within the crowd. "Oh my head, did you really sing?" Another pink troll joined in. Branch nodded, shyly rubbing the back of his neck. Yes, I did. Now that was an even greater milestone than the dance. It was the one thing he vowed above all that he would never do again. He swore to himself 2 decades ago that he wouldn't sing, whistle, hum, or even think of a song for the rest of his life. His dance with Poppy had not been spontaneous. He had seriously considered it when he joined her on the bench after his stroll, and made up his mind to act on that thought soon after she left to refill the snack tables. But not a single cell in his body had planned to sing. It just happened. Branch had been so at peace, so comfortable in that moment, that singing had been an automatic response. And he couldn't even say it had felt awkward in any way. Somehow, despite the overpowering emotions that had been whirling inside of him, his voice did not falter, not even for a second. Singing just felt so right. It felt wonderful to sing again. The fact that it felt so right to sing was even more wonderful. The mere thought of him letting out even a single line used to tear his heart to pieces. Yet, now, when he literally sang several lyrics plus an entire chorus, his heart had swelled with pure joy. And the fact that it had been a song expressing how important Poppy is to him made the moment even more meaningful. Quicker than Branch could blink, more questions came flooding in. What song did he sing? He opened his mouth to answer, but he wasn't given the chance. Will you be singing all the time now? I hope so. That would be so great. You totally should. Yeah. Branch found himself taking a few steps back. I don't know. The intense enthusiasm only increased. I want to hear you sing. You can sing at the karaoke tonight. Here, I can give you the address. Oh, there's a singing competition tomorrow. I'd love to hear your voice. Me too. Me too. What's your favourite song? Is it the one you sang last night? Guess what my favourite song is? To Branch's dismay, he found his heart racing as that desperation to flee began creeping up his spine. His eyes darted all over the rainbow of trolls surrounding him, all seeming to be 2 inches away from his face. Their voices began to blur together, their words lost in the general noise. His own voice was frozen, as were his legs. He was unable to respond, but also unable to escape. Suddenly a hand was on Branch's tense shoulder, an arm wrapping around him and pulling him closer. He glanced towards the source, and was so relieved to see Poppy that he almost fainted. Hey, my party peoples! Sorry to interrupt, but I really need to borrow Branch here for a minute. There were many light whines and pouting lips, to which the cheery queen responded, Don't worry, I'll fill you in tonight at the Jack-o'-lantern festival. Remember, the contest starts at exactly 5:15. Before anyone else could complain or question anything, Poppy grabbed Branch's hand and abruptly pulled him through and away from the crowd. Only once they were thoroughly out of view and earshot, behind a large boulder off the main trail, did she finally slow the pace. She released his hand and spun around dramatically. Wow! Look at you, Mr. Popularity. When I heard that everyone's been talking about you, I didn't realize it was everyone. Branch lowered his head to glance shyly at the ground. Even though his lips were curled up in a little smile, his blue eyes looked troubled. Yeah, apparently, that was... Yeah. Clearing his throat, he collected himself. So, what was it you needed me for? Oh, nothing. I just said that so I could rescue you from all the excited crying. It looked like you could use a breather. All the tension instantly left his body, and the soft warmth returned to his gaze. Thanks, Poppy. Yes, I needed that. Before Branch even finished speaking, her arms had wrapped around him. He may need a break from trolls he wasn't well acquainted with, or even the familiar snack packet from time to time, but he would never tire of being around Poppy. Maybe Branch was just imagining it, but something about their hugs was different now. Physically, the gestures were the same. They had been sharing hugs like this, with above-average affection, since they had confessed their love. But now that their relationship status was officially upgraded, embracing Poppy felt like holding her in his arms was just... He gave up trying to find the words to describe this new sensation. It didn't need a label. All Branch knew was that it was very special and a deep connection that they shared only with each other. When Poppy stepped back, she took hold of his hands and said softly, "You know, you can't really blame them for wanting to hear you sing. No one's ever heard your voice before. And let me tell you, you have a very beautiful voice." He smiled shyly, which prompted her to add, "I would really love for you to sing again." Branch felt a pang of unease at the light play in her words. He did enjoy that bit of singing just last night, but... Poppy instantly recognized his nervous gaze, and must have sensed his reluctance. "Not right this second," she hastily clarified. "I mean whenever you feel like it again. No rush whatsoever. I'm just saying it was so great to hear you sing." She continued very softly. "I know everyone else is like, 'Oh cool, you finally sing.' But I realise how huge of a step that was for you. I can't even imagine what it must have felt like."
Yeah, I can hardly explain it to myself, which makes it difficult to give answers.
Before Branch could get uneasy again, she briefly placed her hand on his cheek and assured him, "Don't worry about the mob of curiosity. I'll sort that out. Later at the festival, I'll update everyone on the general summary of what happened last night. That way they won't be probing you with questions every 5 seconds. With no hesitation, Branch put his arm around her shoulders, gently pulling her towards him and tenderly kissing her cheek. His smile widened as her pink cheeks instantly turned darker, making her white freckles shimmer. His stomach did a pleasant little flip as she gave him that adorably coy smirk. Her eyes half-lidded with her teeth over her bottom lip.
"Poppy! Branch!"
Smidge's booming voice alerted them that she, along with the rest of the snack pack, was approaching down the trail. Despite the out-of-the-blue audience, Branch kept his arms snugly around Poppy. For a split second, that instinct to spring away from her flashed in his mind. But just as instantly, he remembered that limiting their affections in public was no longer necessary. If it ever was in the first place. He had gotten used to being close to Poppy, and had gained a decent amount of self-esteem. He loved her. She loved him. Everyone was aware of their love, and everyone supported it. So what did Branch have to hide? He was ready to break his habit of hiding, both physically and emotionally. As Smidge came to a halt in front of the new couple, it was clear the tiny troll was agitated.
"I can't believe I missed it. Everyone else got in on it except me. I feel so left out."
"What did you miss out on, Smidge?" Branch asked her, already feeling sorry for her. Must be something very important to her, to look this distraught.
"I missed the group hug last night."
Branch blinked a couple of times, trying to decipher how the urgency in her deep voice and the simplicity of her words matched up. He guessed that, as often happens, he was blind to something essential that was obvious to the rest of the gang.
"I'm assuming that's a big deal?"
Smidge stared at him incredulously.
"Of course it's a big deal. It was your first group hug after you got your colours back."
"Oh, right." Branch didn't know what else to say there. The last thing he wanted was to make light of another troll's distress. He knew exactly how terrible that felt. But to his practical brain, this was not something to be so upset over. Thankfully, Poppy was the expert at lifting people's spirits. "I know, Smidge, but don't feel so bad. Remember, you got to be one of the few trolls who personally witnessed his colours come back. Even I didn't get to see it as it happened. I only saw the before and after. Plus, you got to watch him dance and hear him sing. Those were the most important moments."
"You're right, I know. But still..."
Smidge didn't appear to be as riled up, but she continued her rant anyway.
That's the problem too. I got to be a part of everything else except the hug. And you know how much I hate missing out on important hugs.
Branch took a step forward.
Well, I'm not sure if this will make up for it, but...
He slowly opened his arms.
How about, first one-on-one hug from anyone other than Poppy?
Smidge stared up at him, her big blue eyes unblinking, her expression seemingly blank. When she didn't move or give any reaction whatsoever after a considerable amount of time, a slightly confused Branch lowered his arms, assuming it was her way of rejecting his offer. So he was totally unprepared for the pint-sized troll to attack him with a grip that practically knocked the wind out of him.
She squealed, "Yes! This so makes up for it! Oh my god! The first non-puppy troll to solely hug colourful Branch! This will make history!"
"I need to breathe."
"Whoops! Sorry, my bad."
Smidge promptly released her hug victim, allowing him to gasp in some much-needed air. Once she was certain that Branch was still alive, Smidge happily danced around the pocket singing, "I got a pocket full of sunshine, I got a hug and I know when it's all mine." Ow! Poppy laughed and very gently put an arm around Branch, who was checking to be sure his ribs were all intact. Lesson 1 of Snack Pack Hugs. Be prepared for smidges, because they will hurt, especially if there's a delay.
Branch chuckled. I suppose I still have plenty to learn.
Lesson 2, Cooper contributed. Sometimes I fall asleep mid-hug.
Good to know, Cooper. I call dibs on the next Branch hug,
both Biggie and Suki shouted at the same time.
Jinx,
Guy announced. Saturn claimed, I think I deserve the next hug, considering all the efforts I've made for him. Right, Poppy? I beg your pardon, her sister angrily objected. We made those outfits. In fact, the autumn one's design was practically my idea. And you busted my hair making the purple one while you gossiped with Gia. So if anyone deserves a hug from Branch, it's me. While the 6 friends argued over who should hug Branch next, and Smidge continued to gleefully dance around, Milton calmly approached Branch and Poppy, his dark eyes shining.
I wish I'd been there last night to witness all your significant milestones. But what's important is that they did happen, and now the entire village can see exactly how far you've come.
Branch ducked his head.
Thanks, Milton. And it's wonderful that you and Poppy are finally together. In my opinion, you two are perfect for each other. A great balance of opposite personalities and abilities. Just like me and my lovely Smidgeabelle.
Speaking of Smidge, some distance away, she exclaimed,
Oh my god! Double date! We gotta do a double date!
Poppy gave Branch a quick side glance, and when he approved of her silent question with a little nod, she shouted back to Smidge, You bet we do! We'll make that happen one day soon. Promise! Poppy, Branch and Milton continued to discuss last night's events. Smidge had finally taken a break and was lying on the grass, while the others still hadn't reached a solid conclusion for the hug debate. The laid-back veterinarian asked Branch a few questions, in a soft and casual tone that did not pressure him to answer, which ironically made him much more willing to answer. Milton ended with,
Well, at least everyone else in our group got to see your true colours return. They're very nice. A unique combination of...
Oh, my hair! Poppy's sudden exclamation was loud enough to startle both Branch and Milton. Not everyone! My dad! He left the party early, and he said he was going to sleep in this morning, so he probably hasn't even heard about it. We need to fix that. Before Branch could even blink, Poppy once again grabbed his hand and dragged him along in her desired direction. Milton's rushed parting words grew quieter as the distance increased.
Branch, could you stop by my pot after lunch?
Yup, Branch shouted back, before disappearing around the corner with the lively Pink Queen. He had no idea what Milton needed, and it looked like he wasn't going to find out until he got there. Most likely he needed help with his critters again. Branch had given him a helping hand a couple of times since the nest of kittens. According to Milton, Branch was the best assistant because he's caring but not sappy, gentle and not squeamish, knowledgeable, and able to stay focused on a given task. Very few trolls were all of those qualities, and very few of them were available to help out. When the pair finally arrived at King Peppy's pod, Poppy scampered up the stairs to knock on his door solo. Branch stretched and rotated his poor arm. She was going to pull it off at this rate. Oh well, seeing her adorably silly happiness was so worth the occasional sore shoulder muscle. Poppy knocked enthusiastically. As soon as she heard her dad's "Come on in," she opened the dark green door, letting it swing open all the way. The stout orange elder was standing at the far side of the pod, placing his empty breakfast dishes in the sink. He was wearing his familiar dark green vest and olive green shorts, while his magenta and silver hair was even wilder than usual. It looked like he had changed out of his pyjamas, but hadn't gotten around to brushing his hair yet. At the sight of his daughter standing in the doorway, Peppy's amber eyes lit up like two fireflies.
"Hello, my dear. How's your first morning as queen?"
"Great! Excellent! Could not be better. How's your first morning as retired king?"
Peppy shrugged dismissively. "Quite uneventful. So I suppose it's going as it should. I did have a very good night's sleep, however. Best I've had in years."
"Well, that's great, Dad. I'm sure you'll be sleeping like a baby from now on. And now you'll have so much more time to work on all your abandoned hobbies."
"That is true. But enough about me. I can tell you're itching to say something to me."
Barely able to stand still now, Poppy began. "By any chance, did you hear about what happened last night, near the end of the dance?"
"Oh yes, I did indeed. Mags dropped by with another basket of fruit for me, and she informed me of the massive conga line fumble. I imagine watching half the dance floor fall like dominoes must have been quite the entertainment."
Poppy giggled. "Well, yes, it was pretty hilarious. But did you hear about anything else? Something super amazing that happened a few songs after that? During the final slow dance?"
Peppy pondered. "No, I don't believe so."
So Poppy stepped back out onto the patio, eagerly gesturing for someone to come into view. A few seconds later, a shy Branch peeked around the corner, taking a few timid steps until he was standing in the doorway where Poppy had been. Peppy's orange hand reached up to cover his mouth, barely stifling a gasp.
"Your colours! They've returned!"
He slowly walked towards Branch, completely in awe.
"How?"
Branch glanced at Poppy, now standing beside him, expecting her to excitedly blurt out the story. But she was looking back at him, silently bouncing on the spot in anticipation, waiting for him to give the details.
Well, the simple answer is, I sang. I sang and I danced. For the first time since I lost my grandma. Thanks to Poppy."
He gave her a brief, fond look, and she humbly ducked her head.
"For the past few months, I've been smiling and laughing, playing games, making friends, sharing hugs, attending village events. But it turns out, the very thing that contributed to the loss of my colours in the first place was, ironically,"
Peppy completed the statement for him,
"the final and most important thing needed to restore them. But you needed to build up to it, and do it in your own time."
Branch smiled at the king's soft words as his amber eyes were glowing with strong understanding.
"Yes, exactly."
Peppy took a few steps closer, until he was standing right in front of Branch. The elder took a moment to study his new appearance up close, before placing his orange hands on the younger troll's shoulders. When Peppy finally spoke, his usually bold voice shook with emotion.
"I remember your colours."
In the next second, Peppy's arms reached around to wrap around Branch. pulling him into a tight hug. He had not been expecting such a gesture from Poppy's dad, so it took a second for him to respond in kind. Branch then replied softly,
"And I remember how you always showed concern and tried to help me." The king's next words were barely above a whisper. "But it was never enough."
Keeping his arms around Peppy, Branch assured him,
"But you did all you could. That's far more than anyone else did for me. It was the only indication that I wasn't completely alone. And I won't forget that."
Orange arms briefly tightened around Branch's frame before withdrawing. Peppy was misty-eyed, but smiling.
"I suppose my daughter took over that job as the years passed."
Both of them looked over at Poppy, whose eyes were tearing up even more than her father's. Branch nodded, gazing at the beautiful pink girl who had literally changed his entire life.
"She sure did."
A deep happiness hit him in the gut, and suddenly he felt his own eyes watering. Before the three of them could melt into a weeping mess, Peppy roughly shook his head, his long moustache flapping across his cheeks.
All right. Enough of this sappiness. This should be a joyous time. So, let's get out into the village and do what we do best. Have fun!"
The elder's usual spirit quickly returned. Before Poppy or Branch could comment in any way, the former king grabbed one pink hand and one turquoise hand and pulled them along with him out of the door. When Branch finally averted his gaze from the mirror, he returned to his bedroom, staring down at his glowing hands the entire way.
I thought I'd never be turquoise again. Even in my most pleasant dreams, I was usually grey. And the rare event that I did have any colour, the dream would turn into a nightmare and I'd wind up grey again.
What happened to Branch the outcast? The Branch who got annoyed by everyone and everything, who rejected anything fun, who would lock himself in his bunker for weeks at a time, the troll who lived in constant fear and misery even when he was asleep. Branch chuckled to himself as he answered his own questions.
Poppy happened.
The insanely exuberant girl who insisted on being alone was not his true wish. The stubbornly optimistic girl who had refused to accept that him finding happiness was impossible. There were dozens, maybe even hundreds, of positive things Branch never believed would happen in his life. And yet, all of them did, because of Poppy. The beautiful, pure-hearted magenta queen. My girlfriend. It was a struggle to project that term even in his head.
Queen Poppy is my girlfriend. I'm Queen Poppy's boyfriend.
Branch couldn't determine which perspective sounded more impossible, although hearing her say it aloud pulled a whole new set of heartstrings. On the day Poppy had revealed Branch's colours to her dad, she also informed him about them. Her exact wording had been, "So, Dad, there's one more thing that happened at the party. Branch and I decided to upgrade our relationship and make it official. So, Branch is my boyfriend now." Despite the joy of hearing that phrase, Branch also felt a twinge of nervousness at it being blatantly announced to King Peppy. It was one thing for them to have a close friendship with buried feelings, but it was a whole nother thing to be in definite public relationship. But when Peppy turned to face him, he was smiling warmly.
Good. I was expecting to be given that news soon. I'm glad to hear it.
Branch barely recognized himself anymore, both on the outside and the inside. Yet he was finally comfortable in his own skin, his own bright, bluish-green skin. Even though this new happiness was quite strange, it was who he was truly meant to be. It felt like him. Before, He never knew who he was. As far as he and 99% of the village was concerned, he was no one. Now he could finally say that he was someone, liked and respected by the village, has been a part of many activities and festivals, a skilled and trusted builder and handy troll. A member of the snack pack, a friend, a boyfriend, all those things surely classified him as someone. As Branch began humming yet another tune, a catchy one that reminded him of his magenta sweetheart, he changed out of his camo robes and into some proper clothes. His usual leafy green vest, one of his newer and nicer ones, and dark brown shorts with only a few assorted patches. Far from being fancy, but not completely shabby either. With his familiar wardrobe on and his hair packed with all his essential belongings, Branch was ready to start his day. He made his way towards the doorway, glancing at his nightstand as he passed by it. Then he paused. His feet stopped, and for the 4th morning in a row, he stared down at the small box on the nightstand. The flat, perfectly square, lime green box. Usually, Branch would continue out into his living room after half a minute or so. This morning, he walked over to the nightstand and reached for the little box. Branch opened his hatch door and stepped out onto the soft grass. The autumn air was cool and the sun was just starting to peek over the treetops. Typically, Branch would still be in bed at this hour, but the first thing this morning was the only slot in Poppy's schedule. On the way to her pod, Branch passed by many friendly faces. They greeted him, asked how he was, commented on the nice weather, asked if he would be attending any of the events today. But not a single person mentioned any of the events that occurred during Poppy's coronation dance. Since the evening of the Jack-o'-lantern festival, when she had promised to inform the village about Branch's restored colours, almost no one had pestered him. Sure, there'd been some brief comments and simple questions here and there, or an overexcited troll invading his personal space every now and then, but nothing he couldn't handle. In addition to satisfying their curiosity, Poppy likely requested, very pointedly of course, if they'd ease off a bit and give him some space, since he was still adjusting to big crowds and fun activities, and now has to deal with brand new emotions on top of all of that. When she said how she would update everyone on the general summary of what happened, Branch had later wondered if Poppy would reveal what caused him to quit singing. Surely someone must have asked that. It was a perfectly natural question. If she or any of their friends had let that information slip, at least 6 trolls would have been all over him about it. Yet, he had never heard a single peep about it. But he should have known by now that Poppy would keep her promise to tell only the snack pack, and that they would respect his privacy as well. They probably responded to that inevitable question with something dismissive, such as, "It's a long story. He just never felt like it," or
"All that matters is he's singing now."
Reaching Poppy's pod, Branch made his way up the flight of stairs onto the little patio and knocked on her door. Either she sprang over to it like a frog, or was already standing near it because it flung open immediately. "Branch! Oh, it is so good to see you!" The Queen gave him a quick, firm hug and then linked her arm with his and tugged him inside. "Come on in! Pardon the mess. I'm just finishing reorganizing my pod and preparing for tonight's slumber party."
"Oh, sorry, I know I'm a bit early."
"No, don't apologize. Actually, I'm glad you're here early." Branch's smile faltered slightly as she added, "I'm afraid our hangout will have to be cut short. I had to fit in an emergency mini-festival before noon, so—" Her smile gradually vanished as she stared down at her magenta carpet, ashamed. "If anyone should be apologizing, it's me."
"No, you should not."
As always, Branch was firm, but lovingly patient and supportive. He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder.
"We've been over this before.
I know it's my job to take care of the village and everything else. But you are part of the village too. Hare, you're so much more than that. You're my boyfriend, for Hare's sake. Yet I feel like you always wind up at the bottom of my importance list. Branch gave her a crooked little smile, touched by her typical excessive thoughtfulness, and still highly pleased to hear her refer to him as her significant other. He moved closer to curl his arm around her.
Poppy, that's not true. You've put me first countless times. If you never did, I wouldn't have my true colours.
As Poppy's spirits returned, it was Branch's turn to lower his head.
I'm sorry I backed out of the animal balloon contest yesterday. I was completely exhausted after cleaning up my gardens, and then I ended up giving Milton a hand. And then I got working on those new health and safety signs Dr. Moonbeam requested. The one time you were available, and I rejected your offer so I could just take a nap.
No apologising for that. If you needed rest, then you needed rest. Besides, I'm the one who left you a note on my door the day before saying, "Hey, I'm not here even though I said I'd be. Something came up, so as usual I have to cancel our hangout. Have fun all by yourself."
Poppy, that is not what your note said.
It might as well have, she sighed, letting her forehead bonk against Branch's cheek. It seems like ever since we've got together, we see each other less. But you are not the one to blame for that.
Well, it isn't your fault either.
Despite Poppy's distress, a smile managed to break through. Their first argument as a couple, and it was over trying to prove how deeply they cared about each other. How about we settle this by saying it's both of our faults? Branch shook his head but ended up agreeing.
All right, deal.
He pulled her into a brief hug and then began,
You know, thanks to DJ Suki, word got out that I'm a super great fixer, so I've acquired a decent list of projects to work on around the village. Several plumbing issues and other household problems, various repairs from faulty music boxes to damaged roofs, helping with pest controlling in the gardens. I passed by the construction crew this morning, and they're going to need an extra hand with building additional courses for the go-karts. Oh, and I promised Harper I would attend at least one of her painting classes, so don't want to forget about that.
Though Poppy was smiling proudly at him, Branch decided to end his rambling accomplishments.
My point is, you're dealing with heavier duties as queen, and I'm dealing with being an engineer outside of my bunker. Plus, I'm still adjusting to life as a regular troll. We're each busy with our own things at the moment.
Instead of being reassured by his words, Poppy's pretty pink features almost appeared sad. But we'll make it work, won't we? Her giant pleading eyes stared into his soul, made Branch smile. Of course he did not want his beautiful girlfriend to feel anxious for any reason, but seeing how much she wanted to be with him was like a warm hug to his heart.
Of course we'll make it work, Poppy.
He placed a hand on her freckled cheek, and she lit into his soft touch with lidded eyes.
We just need to get our schedules in check. Allow all this sudden commotion to settle, and reorganize our new lives. It may take some time, but it will work out. What's important is that you and I are always there for each other when we need it most. No amount of time or distance apart could ever weaken our love.
Poetic, confident, compassionate, handsome. Hair, Poppy really wanted to kiss him. So she did. Her small pink hands gripped his leafy vest as her lips pressed firmly against his. Branch returned the kiss. Her hands moved up from his chest to his broad shoulders. Slowly they began to trail down his arms. But as she reached his hands, Poppy's entire body froze. She could feel something on his left wrist, like a thin band. Surprised by the foreign object, she pulled away from him to investigate, and was even more shocked by what she saw. Whoa! Holy sprinkles! Is that not what I think it is. Branch's brain was still fuzzy from the passionate kiss, so it took a solid 2 or 3 seconds for him to focus enough to absorb her gleeful question. His gaze followed down to where she was pointing, and he chuckled at her delayed observation.
If you're thinking it's a hug time bracelet, then yes.
Cue the classic Poppy joy, adorable smiles, stretching into a dorky, but still adorable, and impossibly wide grin. Little pink feet fidgeting, and hands raising up to muffle her squeal. Her voice was a high-pitched whisper. Holy sugar! Branch, you're wearing a hug time bracelet! For reals! She grabbed his hand and yanked it up to her face to get a better look, nearly causing him to lose his footing. Oh, I love this forest green! It's so perfect for you! It matches your clothes and looks so good with your appearance! I love it!
Thanks, Poppy.
She let Branch take his hand back, so he glanced down at the bracelet. Again, for probably the 20th time.
It really does suit me. Not just the colour, but the fact that I'm wearing the traditional accessory of happiness and affection. Who would have thought?
Her delight escaped through a single little on-the-spot dance. This is the best thing I've seen all day.
Branch laughed. It's not even an hour past sunrise.
Trust Poppy to get so overexcited that she can't think straight. Okay, fine. It's the best thing I've seen ever. He had to smirk at her for that.
I seem to recall you saying that my colours returning was, and I quote, the all-time unbeatable best thing you've ever seen.
It was. It is. Oh, shush. I'm trying to appreciate your latest milestone here. On that note, all your milestones are the best thing ever.
Technically, the only one thing can be the best thing ever.
Nope. Nuh-uh. There can be as many as I want. You know what? Fine. How about I just say that you, she poked him on the nose for emphasis, are the best thing that has ever, are the best thing ever. So as Queen, I hereby decree that anything you do is categorized under best things forever.
Branch was unable to stop laughing at that point. He was amused, but also giddy with so much love for her. Her crazy rambling, her silly logic, her stubborn positivity, her hurricane of happiness. She was undoubtedly his best thing ever. He grabbed her hands and pulled her into a brief twirl. Even when he stopped moving, the Pink Queen continued on her own, bouncing on the spot with another cute, happy little dance. Abruptly, Poppy ended her little hop. Okay, I'm done celebrating. I swear. For now, anyway. I'll probably continue later. However, it's question time now. Question 1. When did you get this lovely forest green hug time bracelet? Let me see. He did some quick mental math. A few weeks ago, roughly.
His estimate was good enough for her. So this is your first time wearing it in public?
Yep, first time putting it on, in fact.
Poppy's smile was widening again. Did you get it for yourself, or did someone get it for you? Branch opened his mouth to answer, then closed it when her question fully sunk in. His head tilted to the side in confusion.
Your dad. He gave it to me.
Poppy's eyes widened. My dad? Really?
Yeah. You didn't know?
She shook her head. Excitement was still glowing in her fuchsia eyes, but her expression was clearly stumped. No, I had no idea. He never said a word to me.
Huh. I figured he would have told you. Well, that explains why you never mentioned it.
The pair shrugged with matching smiles. Poppy concluded, he probably wanted to surprise me. Or he thought he should let you tell me. Knowing my dad, it could be any of those.
Well, whatever the case, it makes him the second troll to ever offer me a bracelet.
Who was the first? It was an automatic question, but then Poppy answered herself. Oh, wait, Dad, it was me! Little trolling me in my specially made hug time bracelet.
Branch blinked in surprise. You remember that?
Poppy looked almost offended. Of course I remember. We were standing outside my kindergarten class, in front of the fairy garden, and the bracelet was
royal blue, with hints of lighter and darker blue, and an oversized aquamarine flower.
Her features melded into a sappy pink grin. Ah, you remember it. Branch gave a shy nod, his gaze drifting to her carpet.
How could I ever forget?
Oh, Branch, you are the sweetest! His humble little smile quickly wilted.
I wasn't, though.
What do you mean? He looked up at her, his face looking so adorable, even though there was sadness in his sky blue eyes.
If you remember the bracelet, then you must remember how I rejected it.
Oh, well, yes, I do. I remember that you were not exactly interested in it. Only Queen Poppy could discuss a cold rejection so politely.
Branch mumbled. I was really hoping you'd forget that.
Then he spoke up.
What did you end up doing with that bracelet?
I kept it for quite a few years, even though I knew it would be too small for you. So I finally donated it to the school. I think it ended up being used as a special award for an art contest or something.
I'm sorry, Poppy. He lowered his head again. I wasn't just rude and insensitive to you. I'd been downright cruel. You didn't deserve that, and I never even apologized. Not that it's any consolation, but I felt terrible for how I hurt you that day. And I wanted to apologize. I truly did. I just didn't know how.
Poppy noticed his pointed turquoise ears starting to droop slightly. He didn't look distressed, but he certainly wasn't content. She did not want to fret over something that happened way back when they were just kids. Now that his true colours were back, she never wanted her beloved troll to feel upset ever again, for any reason. Branch, it's okay. You're apologising now, and it's never too late to say sorry. Besides, I was pretty over the top with my friendliness. Didn't I also say something about us becoming BFFs so we can be like twins and wear matching outfits every day and spend every waking moment together?
Branch chuckled. Yeah, something like that.
The Pink Queen's voice softened with a rare seriousness. You and I were both way too extreme. You were too negative, and I was too positive. Now, finally, I think we managed to tone it down to a healthy amount of each. She added in her familiar upbeat voice. So, yeah, you getting annoyed by me while I was practically torturing you with kindness. Yeah, I think we can call it even. Branch smiled, opened his mouth to say something, then practically leapt out of his skin when a bright green flower, accompanied with a bing, popped open on his wrist. Broppy burst into giggles and he immediately joined her. He glanced down at the new bracelet sheepishly.
Gotta get used to that.
After exchanging another giggle, Poppy opened her arms wide. Branch stepped forward and pulled her into a tender embrace. He may need to get used to the hourly ping, but not her warm hugs. He thought back to their first genuine hug, when she was feeling down, and he used a coincidental hug time as an excuse to offer her a nonchalant hug. Now, he didn't need an excuse, or even a good reason. They would hug simply because they were within arm's reach, and had a second to spare. And there was no such thing as a half-hearted hug anymore. When Branch held Poppy in his arms, it was with every ounce of his love for her. When their extended hug time finally came to an end, he asked her,
When's the next time you're free?
For a young queen, that was a very complicated question. Gee, I don't know.
I'm almost always available in the evening, Branch offered.
Well, all next week, dawn until dusk, is packed full right now. Oh, wait! Tomorrow night! The spooktacular maze race was postponed, and nothing else has come up. How about you stop by around 7? No, wait, better make it 7:30 just to be safe. The thought of finally getting to spend some quality time with his beautiful girlfriend made Branch's heart flutter like butterfly wings.
That sounds great, sweetheart. Poppy?
Her eyes widened.
She had caught him.
Were you about to call me sweetheart?
Branch's cheeks instantly turned bright purple. No. Maybe. Is that alright?
Of course it's alright. It's better than alright. In fact, since we're dating, we totally need to have cute nicknames for each other. Oh, I'm going to start brainstorming some for you ASAP.
Why do I feel both very fond and wary of that idea?
Once their soft laughs gradually died down, Branch reached up to brush her fluffy magenta bangs away from her left eye. His hand started to move away from her face. Poppy intercepted it with her own, lacing their fingers together. Her other hand reached for his left one, but instead of grasping it, she settled onto his wrist, placing her hand lovingly over the dark green bracelet. In that instant, blue and fuchsia eyes met. Their silent, loving gazes spoke volumes. The couple slowly leaned towards each other as the eyes drifted shut. But their lips had barely had a chance to touch before there was a loud knock on the door.
Queen Poppy! Queen Poppy! You're needed at the Smiling Taste Buds restaurant.
Another voice sounded from somewhere outside. Queen Poppy, I gotta speak with you. It's urgent. An unusual expression formed on Poppy's face. A frown. She even muttered, already? Considering the optimistic Queen never complains about anything, she probably didn't intend for Branch to hear that, even if her cute pout was likely an accident. He placed a hand under her chin and gently guided her gaze back to him.
Hey, it's all right. I'll see you tomorrow for sure. An entire night just for you and I.
It was Poppy's heart's turn to flutter. I can't wait. She closed the distance between them, pressing her lips firmly against his. It wasn't the passionate kiss it might have been, but it was enough to pacify them until later. She spun around and headed for the door, but paused to peek slightly over her shoulder at him. Bye, Branchifer.
Branch responded with one of his classic warm-hearted scowls. Really?
You bet! I told you I was going to start making a mental list of nicknames. And when I say ASAP, I mean very ASAP. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. Oh, I'm loving this. Peppy's reaction to seeing Branch's colours. Oh my god, I almost cried. And you can hear me giggling in the background, or chuckling at least, during a lot of this. Smidge's reaction to getting that hug from Branch. His reaction to her strength in the hug. Love it. The idea of the double date between them. I like it. And them finding out that, yeah, life does continue. And we've both got responsibilities now. But let's make time for each other. Love that. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.